You're listening to the all-new CultureCast, Chicagoland's finest podcast. Welcome back, everyone, to the all-new CultureCast. I'm your host, Nick, and with me tonight is...
The Gorehound.
Tonight we have a special episode. Every episode's a special episode.
Yeah. And very up-to-date, too.
And very up-to-date. Yes, we are recording live, so to speak.
Yeah.
We are talking about HBO Sunday Nights, Spring 2016 edition. Yeah. It's a very wordy title for us to talk about the past season of Game of Thrones, Silicon Valley, and Veep, which is kind of unique in this case because, Gorehound, you watch Game of Thrones, we both watch Silicon Valley, and I watch Veep, so we kind of share some things and have other interests in other things too, so it's going to be a very... even-handed episode, I would hope so, I would think.
Yeah.
So, do you want to jump into it, or...?
Yeah, let's do that. So you have not been you've watched a little bit of Game of Thrones, right?
I know about Game of Thrones through osmosis of pop culture. Like, you can't not know stuff about Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And just a little that my fiance has watched.
Okay.
With me passing through or everything.
Okay.
So, I know that Hodor died because Hold the Door.
Yeah.
And I guess some big stuff went down last night in the season finale. So,
yeah.
Let me ask you this: what did you feel this past season of Game of Thrones?
I felt like it wasn't that intense. I felt like they just kept on giving us what we wanted. When I am used to Game of Thrones being... I will have 3 disappointments for every one action that makes me like really happy. Because they used to just like kill people off just like left and right. And these were people that we really liked. And now it's like pretty much everyone that I wanted to die has died. And so it's like, okay, but none of the people that like everybody loved, with the exception of Hodor, has really died, and I feel like it's too nice and too pretty when Game of Thrones has a lot of we don't care what the audience wants, where we are following the story that we already have in mind, whether or not you like that or not. Could you see that based on what you've seen?
From what I understand, it's interesting you say that, because the impression I was getting was that many people have been happy with this past season, minus maybe the death of Hodor. That, especially with the finale last night, that the show is finally clearing the deck, so to speak, and they're really having progression with the storyline, which, from what I understood, past seasons kind of... they felt that they were treading ground, like they were just stretching out like story arcs and everything.
Yeah. I was expecting to see more this season because they were really building up to this war. Actually, I guess I didn't know what we were building up to, because there's always all these storylines going down. And I felt like they were like building up to like this one great battle like you would see in like Lord of the Rings, where it's just like 5 armies coming together and just, going to town. But we really didn't see that. It was... They kept the storyline separate.
Wasn't there some big battle last week?
Yeah, but that was only between the Wildlings in the Wall and Ramsay Bolton. That's pretty much all that it was, which was... it was great. I mean, that was an awesome battle. And I was happy with it. But... I don't know. I had so many gripes with this. In part, it was revenge. Because there's such a strive for power. And so Ramsay Bolton was killed by Sansa. And Sansa was apparently getting revenge at this guy for, pretty much raping her for like months straight. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, Sansa's going to get revenge. But all she does is has some dogs go and kill him, which is going to last like only like a minute or two. And that is just not revenge how I would expect it to see. But I was happy to see that Cersei in this last episode actually, followed up with some legitimate revenge, and she's like, I'm not going to kill you right now. I'm going to torture you. And I'm like, that is how you get back at somebody.
Well, it seems like there's a difference between Sansa, who's a quote-unquote good guy, and Cersei, who seems to be a quote-unquote bad guy, for whatever those terms actually mean in the world of Game of Thrones. So I could see Sansa being more of the quick death type versus I'm going to torture you, because it sort of separates her from what that Ramsay guy was about.
Yeah, but and in part, I've mentioned this before. I don't really like Sansa, the actress, very much. I don't feel like she's very good at what in her role, and she's just kind of whining and complaining. She just keeps on telling Jon Snow to do everything for her, and sending some letters out isn't doing anything.
Speaking of Jon Snow, I guess it was revealed who his parents were. So what did you think of that?
I was expecting that. I don't know if it was just some rumors or whatnot, but it just seemed logical. And I really did not try to look up spoilers online, but I did see that. Jon Snow and Daenerys are siblings.
Siblings or cousins? They're related, that's for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was. I don't know.
I guess it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, they're connected. And the wildfire. I kind of suspected that to happen, where Cersei was going to blow up just the entire city. Which made me very happy, because that was my way of, or that was the way of seeing that, yes, Game of Thrones can still kill off a whole bunch of people in one episode and just keep the story moving forward. And I was just getting real sick of the religious cult. It was just, not much was happening with them. It was just kind of just...
The little I saw of that, it seemed very cliched. Like, oh no, the religious people are in, they're using quote-unquote God to get their way, and, they're evil no matter how you cut it. And it's just, I feel that's a trope that's played out so much that I was surprised that Game of Thrones was doing it, but oh well.
Yeah, because once they were revealed... Yeah, they did a lot of stuff, and that kept it moving forward. But then it was almost as if the story said, okay, we've cemented their place as an antagonist. Let's keep them there.
What about, let's shift gears. What about Arya? She had a big storyline this past season.
Yeah, I was happy to see that something actually happened with her. And that death, I was so happy. That was so cool how that happened, and it made sense.
Now, what are you specifically referring to? I guess we should have said spoilers for this.
Yeah, nothing but spoilers.
But I'm guessing anyone who's listening to this has probably already seen it, as we're like 10 minutes into our discussion. So
yeah, they killed him. Arya killed this guy who's just nobody's really liked, and it was at that I was thinking, is he going to be like the one guy who just like survives everything, even though we've all wanted him to die in every single season?
Now you're talking about the Walder Frey, or the guy who caused the Red Wedding?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, exactly. I would have liked to see more happen with Arya, because we spent half a season just seeing her build up to this faceless god, and then she just walks away from it. Did you see that episode?
I guess I've been watching it more than I realized, just in passing, because it's always on at 8:00 on Sundays.
Yeah.
But it does seem, and again, this is coming from the outsider's perspective. I'm sure there's some Game of Thrones hardcore fan out there that's going to get angry with me, but it just seemed like they were doing this whole storyline and it just kind of went nowhere.
Exactly.
No,
It's
no
like she
pun
just
intended. But
she just walks away from it, and we're like, are you like taking like a relic of like the faceless god with you? Are you like still a worshiper of this faceless god?
like, are they going
What?
to like still like try? Because like they tried to kill her. Are they just
Right.
going to like stop because she killed one of theirs, and they're like, forget it.
Yeah. Yeah, after a while the mystic quality of the faceless god really diminished.
Hmm.
Where it wasn't that special anymore. It pretty much diminished it only down to the fact that you can change faces, and there's nothing else, mystical or magical about it. So yeah, she did walk away with a gift of the faceless god. Oh, whether that gift was taken or stolen, or received or stolen.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: where do you think things are going to go next season? Seems like there's the board's been cleared. A lot of players
Yeah.
are in spot for what's probably their last big act, because I think the show only has 2 more seasons, and I guess they're going to be shortened seasons.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
I've heard that I guess next season is going to be like 7 episodes, and the
Huh.
following season, which would be its last, would be just another 7. So whether that comes true, who knows? But that's been the constant rumor.
Yeah.
So it looks like things are really coming to a head, especially since they cleared out a lot of characters now. Where do you think the show is going to be going? You got Daenerys on her way to Westeros with her dragons,
Yeah. I
and
think that is the conclusion of the entire. Well, I think that what would be like the final episode is the war with the White Walkers.
mhm.
That seems to be what's building up. Because at first I thought it was Daenerys taking the throne, but I feel like that I was expecting to see that in the last episode, but we ended on the boat, and I'm like, well, I guess it's over. That was real disappointing, but I just felt like it was like imminent that it was coming. But yeah, I mean, all the characters are making a name for themselves. You're seeing them move on to bigger things, and they can't really just like flush in a whole new cast of people because they have to
Right.
maintain some. Um, yeah,
Let me ask you this. I read this theory online a few weeks ago. I want to hear what your thoughts are.
yeah,
There's a theory that the real villain, like the end game villain of this whole thing, is going to be Daenerys. That it starts the show off kind of like a Breaking Bad scenario where she's this innocent girl, doesn't know what's going on. She builds herself into this warlord that's not too different from, I guess, the Mad King.
yeah,
That ultimately she's going to be the big villain to contend with, and that they're all going to be busy fighting each other. That when the White Walkers come, it's just going to be really easy for them to
yeah.
take over. What are your thoughts on that?
That would be a severe change of heart or severe character change for Daenerys, because you've seen her evolve. Um, you know her principles, and she has worked hard to make those principles happen. And these aren't principles which aren't inherently benefiting her. Like abandoning or getting rid of slavery isn't going to, you know, directly impact like affect her. Um, so I don't see that happening. I still think it's the White Walkers who are the the big enemy. So yeah, I mean, I could see Daenerys, uniting all the kingdoms, and then defeating the White Walkers and living in a happy family thereafter.
Well, I guess they do call this series, like the book series, is called A Song of Fire and Ice, and
Yeah,
the theory is that it refers to specifically Jon Snow and Daenerys, with Jon Snow being the ice element and the Daenerys being the fire element. So,
mm.
as like a metaphor, so to speak. So maybe those two are on some sort of collision course one way or another.
Oh yeah, yeah, because I can see that. where the final battle is between Jon Snow and whoever aligns themselves with him, and Daenerys.
Be interesting to see. But
Yeah.
well, let's continue on.
So Silicon Valley.
Now, this is a show that we both watch, so we could both really get into it.
Yeah. Were you as enthralled with the season as I was?
Yes, I liked where it was a weird season. I felt because I liked where it started, and I thought about midway through, they kind of went back to the status quo, and then the last episode or two, they kind of really got a good groove back. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed Silicon Valley. I loved Action Jack, the CEO that took over Richard's position.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, we're going to make this box, and they all hate it. But,
oh, yeah, that still was this season. I forgot that, because that was like the very beginning of the season, right?
That was the first couple of episodes, yeah. And then about at midpoint, they were able to get rid of him.
Just cut him out. Yeah.
And they went back to the T.J. Miller's house to continue their work. So.
Yeah. I was looking forward to this Silicon Valley every night, more so than Game of Thrones, because it wasn't just that it was a comedy, because as I've said before, I tend to steer clear of these comedies because they just seem so superficial. But there's so much story to this, and all the characters are so different, and you connect with each of them on a different level.
Definitely so. They all play a very specific role on the show, and not one overlaps another, and everyone gets their due, with possibly the exception of Monica, played by Amanda Cruz, who just kind of pops in there every couple episodes to tell Richard what he's doing right and what he's doing wrong. But it seems like she might be in the show more next season, which I think will be a good thing. But I really liked this season. I found out something interesting about this season just last night. So, do you remember at the beginning of the season when Jack Barker wanted to make this box, and they decided that they're going to have they were going to do that Skunk Works project to make it seem like they're working on the box, but in reality they're going to work on the platform. As a way to, when he has to give it to them, they'll have nothing but that, so he'll be forced to do it. Apparently, and of course in the show, Richard screws up and Jack finds out about it.
That was so great.
Oh my! We'll talk about that. Let's table that for a few minutes. Apparently, the bulk of the season, originally when they were outlining the season, was supposed to be them doing that Skunk Works scheme. Like that was going to be the majority of the season, but then when they were trying to plot it out, they realized it wasn't all that funny, so they changed gears completely and did something else.
So they kept it, but just on a smaller scale.
Yeah, they were actually supposed to go through with the scheme, but they decided it wasn't funny, so they just let Richard screw up, and they found it there, and so it ended it early on, and they went in a different direction, but. To what you were laughing about a few moments ago, that when Richard trips, it was hysterical. What caused him to trip was I can't think of the character's name, the tall guy.
Gabe.
Yeah. Well, Gabe from The Office.
Oh yeah. Same person.
Yeah, he's pretty much the same role. I can't think of his name on the show at the moment, but when they're all trying to make fun of Dinesh. And Gabe kind of turned to him about that stupid chain that he was wearing. And Gabe turned to him and said something completely awful, which I probably shouldn't repeat here. But pretty much along the lines of, hey, do you choke your mother with that when you do stuff? I just lost it when he said that because he says it so innocently and it's so vulgar that comes out of his mouth that over the next week or so, my fiance and I were quoting that line just randomly, and we could not stop laughing for about a good 5 minutes. It was just so hilarious because it's so over the top and so out of character for him to say that, but that's what made it funny.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's probably the hardest I'd laughed in a while there.
Yeah, yeah. All the characters just are so unique, and they're just, gosh, I don't. They're awesome. And I like that none of them. I mean, obviously, Thomas Middleditch, the Richard Hendricks, has the most focus because you kind of have to have focus.
Yeah, he's our lead character. He keeps everything on track.
Right. But then you never really see an episode with just like a single person. You know how like X-Files, like you'll have one episode where it's just nothing but Dana Scully and
Right.
Mulder is out doing his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever Richard isn't like the center of attention, it's always like 2 or 3 other people that are involved in some other side story. And so you're always still kind of building on the character of the group, even though we're, going onto a different direction.
Right, yeah. It's always about the group at the end of the day, and they all work well. Like, Dinesh and Guilfoyle are all hilarious as an odd couple in terms of just... They're best. You could tell they're best friends, but they loathe each other at the same time, which is great. It's absolutely great. There's so many like little lines in the show that just make it work, and I love it when Richard gets a victory, or when their whole team gets a victory, because it's like vindication, because you feel bad for them because they are victims of their own success. Anytime they screw up, it's always something that they did. It's hardly ever an outside force.
Right, and it's that it's going to turn out all right. But you're just thinking, what if it doesn't? And you're just like, you feel for the crew so much.
The show excels at what's called cringe humor, where you're just watching them and you're knowing they're screwing up, even if they don't realize it. And you're just like, you're cringing. Like the episode where Richard was venting to the reporter about how much, and he thought it was the HR person. Like, we as the viewer know immediately what's going on. And you just see Richard digging himself into a deeper and deeper and deeper hole. Yeah,
but you can also see him, he's just like, this is what I want to do right now, and this is what I'm going to do. And he just feels so strongly about it, and I'm like, I can connect with that so much, where you're just like so focused in on something, you forget to, cover all your bases and, just think about like the basics of what you're doing. It's like you just like type out this really long email that's just like ranting, and you're supposed to send it to your friend, and you're like, all right, send, and it like goes to your boss.
Yeah,
because it's one simple move that could have prevented all of this by checking the email, but it doesn't, and that's just what this entire thing is.
Exactly. That's what.
Do you happen to know how many more seasons this is going for?
Well, it's renewed, I think, until at least next season. So I don't know. I think they do it by a year basis, but it's still pretty popular. It helps that it's on right before Game of Thrones. So as far as I know, it's probably good for at least as long as Game of Thrones is still on. So that's So, and I'm curious to see where it's going to go next season, because the group is still together. Bachman owns it, so they don't have to deal with outside pressure the way they had.
Yeah, and that was so happy, because I felt like they were like going back home after you heard that, and just Bachman in himself is just, you hate him, but you're like, how has he made it through all of this? And he is still like a major player in the game, and you're just like, it makes you really second guess like the capability of these people.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, you look at Enric Bachman, played by T.J. Miller, and you think he's just this colossal screw up and idiot. He's smarter than he realizes, and
he has such extremes, because yes, he is that screw up, but he's also, very good at whatever he does.
Like in the season finale, he was able to make Pied Piper sound more impressive than it was by just inferring things, and that got them a potential huge deal. Obviously, it fell through because the tick up with users was completely fabricated, but he was able to make an aura of superiority that the company is doing fantastic, and he's good at bullshitting, which is exactly what they need in that company.
Yeah.
So, and can I just say, I love the little asides that he has with the Yin Yang,
Jin Yang.
Jin Yang, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he tries to prank call him. It's so pathetic, but
yeah, and that interaction really brings it to reality, because you're like, yeah, that's exactly how I imagine Silicon Valley to be and all these startups, because they're in California, where it's a completely different way of life, and they're not just like in some suburban area. They are in Silicon Valley, where all these startups happen like this, and just reach $1 billion and go forward. I would say that even if this was canceled immediately, I still think that all of these characters can really move up from here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I am really looking for. TJ Miller, he looks like a total mess up, and he looks like just another Will Ferrell, where he's just all the stuff is just like very stupid and just. But he's not. He's really good. So I'm really looking for. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say TJ Miller is definitely on an upswing in terms of popularity. He does a couple commercials. He does this show. He was in the Deadpool movie.
As the bartender.
Yeah. I feel, though, I worry, though, that he's going to become overexposed too quickly, because he kind of plays the same character again and again and again.
Yeah.
And it works for now, but I hope he doesn't get stuck too much in that rut, because he's hilarious, but I'd like to see him in other things and doing other things. So.
Yeah. And I should mention, if you weren't familiar, Kumail Nanjiani also hosts a very, very popular podcast called the X-Files Files.
Right. He was in the X-Files miniseries this past winter.
Oh, yeah, and like 3 of his last 5 podcasts have been on that experience. The podcast is great. He's a very good podcaster, and it's a very interesting series.
Anyway, any final thoughts on Silicon Valley season 3?
No, let's move on to Veep.
Alrighty, so our third and final show, centering on HBO Sunday night, is the Julia Louis-Dreyfus political comedy series Veep. Now, this is a show that I watch. You do not watch this, do you, Gorehound?
I've seen it a few times because she watches it, but other than that, I've never watched it on my own or paid attention for a full episode.
You're referring to the Graveyard Queen, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she likes it.
This is a show that when I watched it last year, I could not get into it. It was not my thing at all. My fiance liked it quite a bit, so it would be on after after Silicon Valley there. So we went into it this year, and I have to say I liked it so much more this year, and I felt like I connected with it a little bit more. I don't know why that was necessarily, but the premise of the show deals with Julie Dreyfus, who, when the show began, she was the Vice President of the United States. By the time that this season came around, which is...
Hence the name.
Yes. This season came around, it's its 5th year. She has since become the president, and she became the president through the previous president leaving office, so she was appointed up. So she wasn't elected. She was, whatever they call that there. The past season dealt with her fallout from her election, which was actually a tied election with her opponent. So now the vote had to go to the Senate, and with the Senate voting, she was trying to get more votes than her opponent, which causes all sorts of complications. And through various means, it's almost looking like her running mate, the prospective vice president, would actually become president. It's weird.
Yeah.
Man, that sounded so convoluted. I apologize, but
Politics are convoluted.
politics, yes, are very convoluted. They made it work in the show, so I'm just explaining it poorly because I can't explain things to save my life, which is why I was not a history teacher, but or a political science major. But as the season goes on, spoilers here, turns out that neither one of them win the vote, and she essentially is pushed out of office. And the season ends with the new president taking over, and the new president actually takes credit for something that Julia Louis-Dreyfus actually set up, but didn't actually go into effect until the new president took over, so she lost her legacy for doing something good. Hijinks just ensue. Yeah. So I don't know where the new season's going. I heard some rumors that I guess it's going to follow her career as being a former president, and a former president that wasn't liked very well, which I don't know if is a good
kind of like George Bush.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah, but I guess the impression is that the American people like her even less. But so I don't know if that's a good way to go necessarily. I think it would cut some of the humor from where the show sort of got it from, but I don't know. Maybe I'll be proven wrong on that.
The season finale happened yesterday, right?
Yes.
What did you think of it?
Very unexpected. Pretty much, it revealed how she didn't win the election. Her vice president nominee didn't win the election either, so none of them got into office, and she pretty much left the White House, and that's how the season sort of ended.
Okay, and, but it was still funny and dark and all that.
It wasn't as dark as previous episodes. It's interesting. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, the last two episodes, when it was clear that she wasn't going to be winning, she's good at doing comedy and then switching it over to like I don't know how to describe it, but she has a lot of humanity in her role. Like you feel, even though she's kind of an awful human being, you feel bad for her that she's losing this presidency.
Oh, so she's actually doing some not so ethical stuff. It's not.
Oh well, she's ethical. I mean, she's not like an illegal doing anything overly illegal.
Yeah.
The show doesn't pull its punches when it comes to politics. I mean, you got to think all these people in politics are total assholes to begin with. I mean, even the president and politicians that we like are probably complete a-holes, like, behind the scenes. And this is the show that kind of exploits that. Okay. And, like, she wasn't necessarily doing any underhanded tactics, but, you know, she doesn't have a nice word to say about anyone. And she kind of sees people as, like, a means to an end. And it's done in a comical fashion.
Yeah.
This season had two fantastic episodes that were just absolutely great. Some of the best that the show has done from what I've seen. One was where this was shortly after the election had completed, and they're trying to find the missing ballots and everything. Julia Louis-Dreyfus's mother, well, the character's mother, died, and I guess she and her mother did not get along very well. So she was not moved by this at all, and she was looking, and this is how dark it got, she was trying to find ways to utilize her mother's death to get sympathy from the American people to bolster her chances of being reelected. It was so twisted. It was so dark, to the point that when she decided to pull the life support, turn off the life support, she completely neglected to inform her daughter that she was doing that, and so her daughter was completely out of the room getting coffee for everyone when her grandmother died, when she should have been there. It was incredibly dark, it was incredibly twisted, and I loved every single moment of it. And to the point where, you know, she's not crying, she's not feeling very emotional, but right before she's supposed to give her mother's eulogy, she's informed that some of the election ballots that they were trying to find to help, discover if she was going to be, if she actually won the election, they discovered that they did find the ballots, but it was in favor of her opponent. And so when she got up there, she started to cry and was depressed. Not because her mother died, but because of her not winning the state that she thought she could win. It was marvelous.
Oh man, you are building this up pretty well. Yeah. When I hear of this, I just think of Seinfeld because I don't know. I thought it was Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
I've always pronounced it as Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I could be wrong. As you very well know, I cannot pronounce people's names to save my life. So don't take my pronunciation as gospel.
Okay, Elaine. Does she do a better job as Elaine or as whatever her role is in this?
I would say she's better in this.
Yeah.
Because I think she has more to work with.
Yeah.
I think this role is more complex than Elaine is. I think the fact it's on HBO and they're a little bit freer to do things, it gives her more of a broad range on how to do. Some of the humor is more dark. Some of the humor is very subtle. And I think it works in her favor of what she can do. So I would say, and she's more of an experienced actress at this point than 20 years ago when Seinfeld was on. So I honestly think she does better in this role as Selena Meyer than as Elaine. So.
Okay. And you would agree that, I think we would both agree without even knowing much, that her performance in Veep or Seinfeld is better than her performances in The New Adventures of Old Christine?
I actually never saw The New Adventures of Old Christine, so I cannot comment on that.
It doesn't look very entertaining.
I will say this, though. I think that show lasted for 4 seasons, so outside of the 4 cast members of Seinfeld, she's done the best with herself post-Seinfeld. Oh, one last thing. The other episode that I really, really liked this season was the episode before the season finale, in which there was a reoccurring plot line this season where Selena's daughter was filming some sort of documentary, and you saw her in numerous episodes just in the background videotaping things just randomly. And then the episode before the final one, they actually showed you the documentary, and they replayed scenes from the past season, but in new context. So you saw things that were going on that you didn't see before, and it was marvelously done. It was hilarious how they restructured things.
I could see that.
It was incredibly, incredibly clever. One character... There's one episode where all the characters were having a meeting, and they said, all right, meeting adjourned. So they all walk out, and then all the characters come back in the room except for one, and they're having a meeting about that other person that just left. And then that meeting ends, and they all leave, and then one guy comes running back in, and he pops his head in the room. He's like, oh, I thought they were going to have a secret meeting without me. And then he leaves. Well, in the episode in the documentary episode, you see that scene played from the other angle, and after he leaves the room, everyone else comes back in and starts complaining about him. So it's one of those like things that makes you want to go back and rewatch the season to see things now in a new light. So
yeah, I could see that.
But anyway, so that's I think that's our 3 shows. That's HBO for the spring of 2016. We got a whole year to wait.
I'm sure that there are other HBO shows that also just ended last night, but
those are the 3 big ones.
Yeah. So, not diminishing any other HBO shows which people may have liked.
So, I actually have some trivia for you tonight.
Oh boy, let's hear it.
Okay. Now, this is going to be related. This is going to be related to tonight's topic.
Okay.
So, Emilia Clarke and Lena Headey, both stars of HBO's Game of Thrones.
Daenerys and Cersei,
yes. Yeah. They also played another character, the same character, different versions of it, in another popular science fiction franchise? Was the role A, the Bionic Woman, B, Sarah Connor, or C, the voice of Wonder Woman in different Wonder Woman cartoons?
I know Amelia Clark was Sarah Connor, but I don't know if was it Cersei's. It was Cersei's, right? Was her name?
Yeah, the character's name Cersei's.
Okay.
Lena Headey.
What was the A and C answer?
It was the Bionic Woman when they rebooted that a couple of times a few years back.
Okay.
Did they both play the Bionic Woman? Did they both play Sarah Connor from Terminator? Or did they both play Wonder Woman, like doing a voice in one of the DC cartoons?
I'm going to have to say Sarah Connor.
You are absolutely correct.
Oh, no way.
Amelia Clark obviously played Sarah Connor in last year's Terminator Salvation, Genesis, or whatever, Terminator, whatever.
Yeah.
And Lena Headey played Sarah Connor in the short-lived Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles TV show from the late 00s.
The TV series. Oh my god, dude, that's crazy.
So you have regained some points. I don't know what your score is at.
She does not do a good Sarah Connor. Well, based on these screenshots.
She was okay in the show. I remember liking the show. I only watched the first season and a half, but she did a good job. She's different, but she kind of had to be for the show to work.
Yeah.
She's not as intense as Linda Hamilton was, but
total badass.
Yeah, but she wasn't too bad. She was good. There you go. There's your trivia of the day.
Awesome.
So, all right. I think that's going to do it for us this time around. Then, do you have any other thoughts or any other comments or inspirational words before we depart today?
No.
Okay. Fine by me. So, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for listening to our HBO Sunday night episode, and we will catch you next week with a very special episode. A very special 4th of July episode. Wink, wink. We'll see you later, folks. You've been listening to the all-new CultureCast, where every episode is all new. Check out our blog, Zach and Nick's CultureCast, at znculturecast.wordpress.com, and find us on social media. Send us an email at nick.culturecast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your feedback, comments, and requests. Theme music by bensound.com. The all-new CultureCast, a saltwater production, copyright 2016. Linda Headey and Amelia Clark. Yeah. Those two have shared a role in another popular franchise. Is it A? Oh, shoot, I forgot my options. Hang on a second, I'm sorry. I totally screwed that up.